It's no secret that many of today's kids are engaged in new and risky sexual behaviors that their parents, us, that we did not experience in our youth. About once a month or so, we invite our resident couples counselor, sex therapist, Dr. David McKenzie, to give us his thoughts on current topics. Today, modern sex education is on his agenda. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. David McKenzie back to Studio 4 to tell us more. When it comes to happening in a school or outside the home?
I think because traditionally parents have felt that that was their territory. The problem is that not so much with the younger parents, but with our parents, certainly there's a shyness there, there is an inability to communicate about sexual issues. But a lot of parents are not giving the comprehensive sex education that needs to be given. And so, for instance, in the United States today, $175 million is spent every year to give to school districts to teach abstinence-only sex education. No education is being given on safer sex, on how to prevent pregnancy or anything like that. And so it's a failed policy. Research shows that abstinence-only sex education doesn't work.
Not when those hormones start raging.
You bet. And I mean, there are movements coming out of more conservative fundamentalist churches of purity balls where fathers take their as low as the age of 4 years of age daughters to these balls, and they take vows never to have sex before marriage. And what's happening is that many of these young women are getting into their teens and adolescence, end up meeting a young man, and they do have sex, but they haven't been taught how to have safer sex or take care of themselves. And pregnancy is high in those situations, and STD transmission is also high.
And I bet guilt is high.
You bet it's high, yeah. Because they feel they've broken a vow, a promise they've made. It really sets young people up to feel like a failure in the future. The bottom line is it doesn't work. And in school districts where abstinence only is taught, STD transmission and teenage pregnancy is out of the ceiling.
As you know, some people think if you tell a teenager about contraception and condoms and sexually transmitted disease and HIV/AIDS, that will cause them to have sex.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If you say, here's a method of birth control, that will cause a child to go out and start having sex.
That is the myth. However, the research shows just the opposite. In fact, first sexual experience is delayed, and that young people are more quick to ask questions and to take precautions and to make sure they get into relationships that are respectful if they're taught comprehensive sex education.
Sure, I always say to my kids, knowledge is power.
You bet it is.
And I think a parent, of course, you have a responsibility to talk to your child about intimacy and love and how to say no, and don't think just because a boy asks you, you have to go there, or vice versa. And I think that's our role as a parent.
It's about self-respect. And if the parents are modeling self-respect and teaching that child self-respect from day one, that child's going to take that into his or her life in every area, not just sex.
Well, I don't know about you, but I learned about sex from Judy Llewellyn.
I don't know Judy Llewellyn.
She was my best friend.
Oh, okay. This is an author I hadn't read.
Well, I don't think she's famous, but she told me all about it on the way home from school.
Oh, good.
And of course, then you go home and talk to your sister and say, it's not right, is it? Judy's got it mixed up.
Yes.
And then your sister is aghast.
Yes.
Because my sister was younger.
Yes.
She's like shocked.
Yes. Yeah.
Thinks, no, I don't think so.
I can still remember
But you don't ask your mother.
No, of course not. Yeah, I found out from my friend who his parents had sat down and told him. And so I learned a lot of it from what his parents had told him. At 12 years of age, it was my belief and my friend's belief that, in fact, those who did have sex couldn't have babies. That sex was preventative of babies.
Really?
Yeah. So it was a big shock to me when I learned that, in fact, sex does create babies.
Surprise.
So, yeah. One of the best, in terms of teaching children about the comprehensive sex in Canada, the Nova Scotia Department of Education is the leading department, the leading educational network in terms of teaching children from all ages, right from elementary school and up, about comprehensive sex. And I believe you can write away to the Nova Scotia Department of Education and purchase that book.
Really?
Yes, it's just a fantastic book. Also, Options for Sexual Health, they are across Canada. and you can look them up on the Google search that have literature and information on teaching young people about sexuality.
Sure. One thing I don't want the teachers to talk to my children about are the morals of it, the rights and wrongs, give them the basics.
Sure.
Here's how HIV is transmitted. Here's how a condom works.
Yeah.
Here's
Personally,
different methods of birth control.
Right.
Here's an ovary. Here,
Yeah, sure.
you know what I mean?
Basic sex education.
Yes.
I truly believe that parents... Clinical, sure. I truly believe that parents are the primary ones who should be teaching sex education. But I don't think it should lie outside of our education system to teach our young people about self-respect and respecting others. Those are ethical issues.
Sure. But as a sex therapist who works with many people who are all hung up about sexual issues, I don't know when it starts, but I'm assuming it may start when we're young.
Oh, absolutely. It starts in our childhood. It starts with our attachment or lack of attachment with our parents. Most of the issues that happen to us sexually in life have their roots in our childhood. And that doesn't mean sexual abuse or anything. It just simply means that we take on the attitudes, the repression, the whatever of our parents' attitude towards sexuality.
Right. Or, well, if you were raised with parents who thought it was nasty or dirty,
Yeah.
or you never saw your mother in anything but full dress, full garb.
Yeah.
And, of course, most of us didn't think our parents did it anyway.
Even today's generation, they can't imagine their parents doing it. So.
Oh, no, my girls say, ew, mother. You're like, ew. Don't.
I know. It's incomprehensible.
Too much information still in the room.
That's right.
Don't talk about that.
that's
And
right.
I was a single mother, so
Yes.
we had to have a few discussions.
Yeah. One of the delightful things about Generation X and certainly Generation Y is much more openness and acceptance and inclusiveness of sexuality. It's interesting that in the Anglican Church, where I come from, in the great debate over gay and lesbian marriage and same-sex blessings and ordination, that it's the young people that often lead the way in being inclusive and accepting of gay and lesbian relationships. And it's an older generation that tend to dig their feet in more.
Well, and the joy of being a parent, as you know, is if you have a good relationship with your child and a safe relationship with your child. So when this person is in trouble, they do come to you. And they can come to you. And they know they won't be shamed.
Right.
And they know they'll be embraced and helped.
And the best way for a parent to develop that context of openness is to be aware and in touch with their own sexual issues inside. In fact, to be a sex therapist, one has to engage one's own sexuality. You cannot be giving sex therapy or counseling to others if you have not yourself gone down the road of integrating your own sexuality and your own issues emotionally.
And intimacy is such an important part of this all. And the difficult question with a teenager today would be, I guess, do you have sex just for the fun of it? Just to...
Friendship with benefits?
You know, friendship with benefits, just because it's a fun thing to do? Or do you only have sex with somebody who loves you madly and wants to marry you?
I don't think this generation buys that, and I don't think that it's necessarily the message that I would want to give as a sex therapist. I believe there, I'm going to step out on the road here, but I believe there can be a recreational element to sexuality if it's done with respect and done safely. On the other hand, it can be an emotional wasteland, especially for women and for men, if you're just having promiscuous one-night stands, never any deep or long-lasting relationships.
Well, exactly, because one of the messages women got early in the game, girls early in the game, is if he sleeps with me, he must love me.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, but that's a self-respect issue.
Right, but it's not exactly so,
No,
as you
not
know.
at all. And not all women...
Because there is a male-female difference in that. Or is there?
Well, I've seen and talked with a lot of women who are interested in just one-night stands with guys. They're not wanting long-term relationships.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, yeah. But there is some truth and validity to the fact that women need the emotional, mental connection for sexuality, and they're much more committed to long-term. Comes with female evolution as well.
Sure. Yeah. But I was thinking the abstinence theory today, I call it a theory, but it's an abstinence message, really. Today, kids seem to live together before they get before they get married. They don't get married until they're 30. So how long do you have to be abstinent, or is that an issue?
Yeah, well, that's an extremely good question. Today, Of course, the question I used to pose to couples in the church was, are you having premarital sex or pre-ceremonial sex? Does the marriage begin the day you take your vows, or does the marriage begin before that? And my contention is the marriage begins way before you stand at the altar and take your vows.
Sure. So you mean, good doctor, you're saying, have you been practicing?
Does it fit?
No, I have a friend, and she's gone now, so I can talk about this. And she's older, and she met this man, and she came from a school that suggested you do not sleep with somebody before you marry.
Yeah.
Well, the girlfriends, all the girls are saying, come on.
Yeah.
Don't marry him unless you have.
Right.
And she's saying, no, she was going to wait. We said, no, you're like 55.
Yeah.
You don't need to wait.
It's interesting, when I've counseled couples in which one or the other is saying, no, I can't have sex until we're actually committed, they end up having, my experience is, more sexual problems and issues after they get married. And that the abstinence is a way of pushing the person away and not wanting to be intimate.
Okay, that could be, and you know better than I. How nice to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. Dr. David McKenzie, our resident couples counselor and sex therapist. And tomorrow, Dr. Simon Sutcliffe, president of the BC Cancer Agency, updates us on the latest cancer research and other things. And we meet Kerry Fowler. He's the world's seed banker. He heads up the Global Crop Diversity Trust. Thanks for watching Studio 4. There'll be lots more on Shaw TV, only on Shaw TV.